So remember what is going on in this region while these events are unfolding. The world is on the brink of an enormous battle, the Battle of Carchemish. The Egyptians are forming their alliance with the Assyrians. Josiah, a good king, didn't much like the Egyptians coming up past his territory. He went to war against them and he lost that battle, and that was where he died. We read now that the people of the land took Jehoahaz, son of Josiah, and made him king in Jerusalem in place of his father. It's very clear that Pharaoh Necho didn't much like this particular appointment, and so we read, Jehoahaz reigned for just 3 months. Then, verse 3, the king of Egypt dethroned him and made Eliakim, his brother, king over Judah, and Necho took Jehoahaz and carried him off to Egypt. So we have another new king now in Judah. His name is Eliakim, but Pharaoh renames him for some unknown reason. And so from verse 5, we have the reign of Jehoiakim. You'll notice that after that incident, oddly enough, we don't hear about the Pharaoh ever again. Why is that? Well, you know, don't you? Because Egypt and Assyria did have that battle against the Babylonians, but they lost in a dreadful defeat. Necho did survive, it seems, but he scurried back down to Egypt, ignoring the Judah issue for the rest of his life. And Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, took over the territory. Jehoiakim, according to the Bible, was an evil king. Nebuchadnezzar had no patience with him, so he attacked him, bound him with bronze shackles, and took him to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar also took to Babylon articles from the temple of the Lord and put them in his temple there. His son then succeeds him as king, but he lasts a mere 3 months and 10 days. We read that he did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and evidently, as a result, the Lord allowed Nebuchadnezzar to come and send for him and bring him off to Babylon as well. Another new king is put in place. This is the uncle of the previous king, Zedekiah, so the same kind of royal line. It's all in the family of David, but this is yet another king, and we get just a terrible picture here of total evil. He was an evil man. He did evil in the sight of the Lord. He would not listen to the word of the Lord spoken through his prophet. He rebelled against King Nebuchadnezzar, even though he had taken an oath in God's name, presumably to pay a certain amount of tribute in exchange for his continued existence. He became stiff-necked and hard-hearted and would not turn to the Lord. Furthermore, all, not most, but all of the leaders of the priests and the people became more and more unfaithful, following all the detestable practices of the nations and defiling the temple of the Lord which he had consecrated in Jerusalem. It sounds a lot like the days of Noah all over again, all people doing only evil all the time. Well, this time, when the Babylonians pay another visit to Judah, it is not to switch out one king for another, it is to level the entire place to the ground. Judah has caused more pain than prosperity to King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, and his patience has reached its end. This description is heart-wrenching. He kills indiscriminately, young and old, men and women, even the elderly and the infirm. He carried into exile to Babylon the remnant who escaped from the sword, and they became servants to him and his successors until the kingdom of Persia came to power. Now, we will study what happened to the people of God when they were taken off into exile in future books of the Bible. But remember that this account of the history is written, in fact, after they have returned. And the people living in this era, reading this book, they've come back to the land. And they're asking the questions now, how did we come to be here? What exactly went wrong? What was the cause of all that calamity? Why are we now free from the clutches of the king of Persia, who's taken over from the king of Babylon? And what does God want us to do now? All those questions are answered by the book of Chronicles, and particularly by this final chapter. They were sent off into exile as judgment from the Lord because of their total rebellion. They were preserved in exile because God always keeps his promises, and God said that the line of David would lead to the Messiah. They were released from exile in accordance with the prophecy of Jeremiah, and their purpose now, according to Cyrus, king of Persia, who released them, is that God wants his temple to be rebuilt in Jerusalem. And that is exactly what takes place in the next book of the Bible. The book of Ezra tells us the story of the temple being rebuilt and the people being re-educated in how they should worship faithfully and live with integrity. This chapter then, above all others gives the people great hope. Despite the failings of their forefathers, despite the strength of the superpowers around them, God's plans and his purposes always prevail, and he always keeps his promises. The people of God have not been wiped out. The line of David has not been cut off. The land of Israel has not been given away. And since that is the case, there is every reason to believe that one day the Messiah will indeed come and save his people, not just from the powers of the people that surround them, but from the power of sin that is within them. This Messiah would crush the serpent's head and fulfill the ancient promise to set his people free in the truest sense for all eternity.